The twin suns of Kepler 186 cast long shadows across the cracked Earth as Sarah Chen adjusted her atmosphere suit's recycling system. 6 months into her assignment on this dying world, and she still couldn't get used to the way the crimson light made everything look like it was dipped in blood. The planet's native inhabitants, the Varthine, had requested Earth's help 3 standard years ago, when their last major aquifer began to fail. Sarah was part of the third wave of human specialists, sent to help prevent an ecological collapse. "Advanced civilization," she muttered, tapping her tablet's screen as she recorded another set of disappointing moisture readings. Capable of interstellar travel, but they never thought to develop water conservation technology. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humanity had nearly destroyed Earth's water supply before finally learning their lesson. Now they were the galaxy's experts in water management and purification. A shadow fell across her instruments, and Sarah looked up to find Qatar, her assigned Varthine liaison, towering over her. The alien's crystalline skin structure caught the light of the suns, creating prismatic patterns on the ground. Like all Varthine, Qatar's body was adapted to minimize water loss. Their silicon-based biology made them more resistant to dehydration than humans, but even they couldn't survive without water entirely. "Your readings continue to disappoint, Dr. Chen." Qatar's translated voice carried the characteristic clicking undertone of their species. Sarah stood, brushing dust from her suit's knees. "The aquifer is failing faster than our initial projections suggested. At this rate, the main settlement will need to be evacuated within 3 months, not 6. Qatar's crystalline fragments shifted in what Sarah had learned was their expression of concern. "That is unfortunate. The Council will not be pleased. Many still believe we should not have requested outside assistance. Pride won't keep your people alive," Sarah replied, more sharply than she'd intended. The heat was getting to her, despite her suit's cooling system. "Sorry, that was unprofessional. But Qatar, there's something else. These readings, they don't make sense. The water isn't just disappearing. It's being redirected somewhere." Qatar moved closer, their crystalline form casting rainbow refractions across Sarah's instruments. "Impossible. Our surveys have mapped every underground channel and cavity. There is nowhere for the water to go." Sarah pulled up a 3-dimensional hologram of the underground water systems. "Look at these flow patterns. They're too regular, too precise. This isn't natural geological movement. It's engineered. Someone, or something, built a system to move this water, and it's still active." The Varthine scientists' outer layers rippled, their equivalent of a scoff. "Dr. Chen, while we appreciate Earth's assistance, you must understand that my people have lived on this world for over 10,000 of your years. If such a system existed, we would know of it." Sarah bit back another sharp response. Instead, she expanded the hologram, highlighting specific flow patterns. "Qatar, please, look at these signatures. They're identical to ancient water management systems we found on Earth, just scaled up dramatically. I think your ancestors, or maybe someone before them, built this, and if we can understand it, maybe we can restore it." She watched as Qatar studied the hologram, their crystalline structures shifting in complex patterns she was still learning to read. Finally, they spoke. "The Council will never approve an expedition based on this evidence alone. It contradicts too many of our historical records." "Then we don't tell them." The words were out before Sarah could stop them. Qatar's crystal fragments flared in surprise. "Just give me 3 days. You and me. If I'm wrong, no one needs to know we wasted our time. But if I'm right, if you are right, it could mean salvation for my people," Qatar finished. Their outer layer rippled in what Sarah recognized as deep thought. "It would be highly irregular, unauthorized exploration. It is. Sometimes the biggest discoveries come from breaking a few rules," Sarah pressed. "You know the current plans aren't working. We need to try something different." The suns were setting now, turning the sky into a canvas of deep purples and reds. Qatar stood motionless for long moments, their crystalline form reflecting the dying light. Finally, they turned to Sarah. 3 days, Dr. Chen. But if we find nothing, we never spoke of this. Sarah felt a smile spread across her face despite the gravity of the situation. Agreed. And Qatar. Thank you. I know this isn't easy for you. As they packed up the equipment, Sarah's mind was already racing with possibilities. She'd studied countless ancient water management systems on Earth. But this was different. This was alien technology, potentially older than human civilization itself. The scientist in her was thrilled at the discovery, but another part of her felt something else. Hope. They had 3 days to find something that might not exist on a planet that was actively trying to kill them, against the wishes of an entire civilization. Sarah checked her suit's water recycling system one more time and grinned. She'd faced worse odds before. As the last light faded from the sky, Sarah and Qatar made their way back to the research station, their shadows merging into one long, dark line across the cracked Earth. Tomorrow, they would begin their unauthorized expedition into the planet's ancient secrets. Tonight, they would plan, prepare, and pray that they weren't making a terrible mistake. Neither of them noticed the faint blue glow that pulsed briefly beneath the ground where Sarah had taken her readings, nor the ancient systems that began to stir after millennia of dormancy, awakened by their presence and their questions. Dawn broke over the research station as Sarah finished loading the last of their equipment onto the hover transport. She'd spent most of the night analyzing satellite data, looking for anomalies that might indicate the presence of artificial structures beneath the surface. Tar emerged from the station's airlock, their crystalline form dimmer than usual, a sign of stress Sarah had learned to recognize. The council has scheduled an emergency meeting for 3 days from now, Tar announced, helping Sarah secure the equipment. They wish to discuss evacuation procedures for the outer settlements. Sarah paused, wiping sweat from her brow inside her suit. Then we'd better find something before that meeting. I've identified 3 potential sites where the underground flow patterns converge. The closest is about 40 kilometers east. They set out across the barren landscape, the hover transport gliding silently over the cracked Earth. As they traveled, Sarah noticed Qatar's unusually quiet demeanor. You're worried about more than just the council, aren't you? Qatar's outer layers shifted in a pattern Sarah hadn't seen before. Among my people, there are legends, stories passed down through generations about the time before. They paused, as if choosing their words carefully. Our historical records only go back 10,000 years, to the Great Awakening. But the legends speak of those who came before us, who shaped this world, and then vanished. Sarah leaned forward, intrigued. You never mentioned these legends before. They are considered children's tales, nothing more. But Tar's translation device crackled with interference. If what you suspect is true, if there are ancient systems beneath our feet, then everything we believe about our history might be wrong. The hover transport crested a ridge, revealing a vast plain below. Sarah's instruments began beeping insistently. We're getting something. Heavy metal concentrations, geometric patterns too regular to be natural. She adjusted their course, following the readings to a depression in the ground. As they set up their scanning equipment, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The landscape was empty for kilometers in every direction, yet something about this place felt alive, aware. Qatar, look at this. Sarah projected a 3-dimensional scan of what lay beneath their feet. These aren't just water channels. This is a complete underground complex. And it's massive, easily 10 kilometers in diameter. Qatar moved closer to the hologram, their crystalline structure reflecting the projection in countless directions. These patterns, they resemble our most ancient architecture, but far more sophisticated. They touched one of the projected corridors with a crystalline appendage. Here, this chamber. The metal composition is different. Sarah adjusted the scan, focusing on the area Qatar had indicated. It looks like a control room, or maybe a central hub. And there's something else. She highlighted a series of energy readings. Whatever this facility is, it's not completely dead. There's still power running through some systems. Impossible, Qatar whispered, but their tone had changed from skepticism to wonder. After all this time, Sarah was already unloading their excavation equipment. We need to find a way in. These readings suggest the closest access point should be. She walked about 20 meters east, her boots crunching on the dried earth. Here. They worked through the heat of midday, carefully removing layers of sediment. Sarah's excitement grew with each layer they cleared. This wasn't just a water management system. This was technology that could revolutionize their understanding of this world's past and potentially save its future. The suns had passed their zenith when Qatar's excavator hit something solid. They cleared away the remaining debris to reveal a metallic surface, covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the sunlight. These markings, Qatar said, their voice trembling slightly. They appear in our oldest temples, but we never understood their meaning. We thought they were decorative. Sarah ran her scanner over the surface. They're not just markings. They're circuitry, some kind of interface system. She pointed to a circular pattern near the center. And unless I'm mistaken, that's a door. As if responding to her words, the patterns began to glow with a faint blue light. Tar moved back instinctively, but Sarah stepped closer, fascinated. The circular pattern started to rotate, segments sliding apart with a sound like singing crystal. Sarah. Tar rarely used her first name. We should contact the council before proceeding. This is beyond our authority. Sarah turned to her companion, seeing the conflict in their shifting crystalline patterns. Qatar, in 3 days, your council is going to start evacuating settlements. How many will die in the process? How many will you lose to dehydration or exposure? We don't have time for politics. The door continued to open, revealing a dark passage that descended into the earth. Cool air wafted up from below, air that smelled of water. Besides, Sarah added with a slight smile, aren't you curious? Your people have lived here for thousands of years, never knowing this was right beneath your feet. Don't you want to know why? Qatar's outer layers rippled in what Sarah had come to recognize as resignation mixed with amusement. You humans have a dangerous gift for making reckless decisions sound reasonable. It's one of our better qualities, Sarah agreed, already preparing their descent equipment. Come on, let's see what your ancestors left behind. As they prepared to enter the ancient facility, neither of them noticed that the patterns on the door had begun pulsing in rhythm, like a heartbeat awakening after a long sleep. Deep below, systems that had waited millennia for the right combination of visitors, one of crystal, one of water, began to stir. The story of how two beings of fundamentally different natures would rewrite the history of an entire world was about to begin its next chapter, written in water and light, deep beneath the dying surface of a world that had not yet revealed all its secrets. The passage descended at a gentle angle, ancient lights flickering to life as Sarah and Qatar made their way deeper into the facility. Their footsteps echoed off walls that seemed to shimmer with an inner luminescence, the metal unlike anything Sarah had ever encountered. Her scanner showed compositions that defied conventional material science. The air here, Qatar observed, their crystalline form reflecting the ethereal lighting. It contained significantly more moisture than the surface. Sarah checked her instruments. Humidity levels are nearly Earth standard. Whatever this place is, it's maintaining its own environment. She ran her gloved hand along one of the walls, feeling the slight vibration. These systems have been running continuously for thousands of years. The engineering is incredible. They reached a junction where the passage split into 3 branches. The walls here were covered in the same circuit-like patterns they'd seen on the entrance, but these were actively shifting, lines of light flowing like rivers through the metal. Look at this. Tar moved closer to one wall, their crystalline appendages tracing the patterns. These symbols, they're similar to our most ancient writing system, but far more complex. Sarah was about to respond when her tablet chimed with an urgent alert. She pulled it out, her face falling as she read the message. "We've got company. Satellite shows 3 council vehicles heading this way. Someone must have noticed our unauthorized expedition." Car's outer layers flared in alarm. "We should return to the surface. If we're discovered here, we might never get another chance," Sarah interrupted. "Tar, look around you. This facility is active, maintaining itself after thousands of years. The answer to your world's water crisis could be down here." She gestured to the flowing patterns on the walls. "These aren't just decorations. They're data. Living information, still running after all this time." A low humming began to fill the air, and the patterns on the walls pulsed more intensely. Tar's crystalline structure resonated slightly with the frequency, creating tiny rainbows in the air. "It's responding to us," Sarah realized. "Or maybe, to you specifically. Tar, you said your people emerged during the Great Awakening. What if you didn't just arrive here? What if you were created here?" The humming increased, and suddenly the patterns on the walls coalesced into distinct images, holographic projections showing figures that looked like earlier versions of the Varathine, their crystalline forms more geometric, more artificial. "Bite all that flows," Qatar whispered, using a Varthine expression Sarah had never heard before. "We were not meant to forget. This place, it was waiting for us to return." Sarah's tablet chimed again. "Council vehicles are 12 minutes out. Qatar, I know I'm asking a lot, but we need to push forward. Which branch do we take?" Qatar stood motionless for a moment, their outer layers shifting in complex patterns as they studied the flowing data on the walls. Finally, they pointed to the leftmost passage. "There, the patterns. They're pulling in that direction. As if they're trying to show us the way," Sarah finished. She checked their oxygen levels and water recycling systems. "Okay, let's see what your ancestors wanted you to find." They hurried down the chosen passage, which sloped more steeply downward. The humming grew stronger, and Sarah noticed that the air was becoming noticeably cooler. Her instruments were picking up massive energy signatures ahead, along with something else, large volumes of moving water. The passage opened into a vast circular chamber that took Sarah's breath away. The ceiling arched high above them, covered in swirling patterns of light that reflected off pools of clear water arranged in concentric circles. In the center, a column of pure energy rose from floor to ceiling, pulsing with the same blue light they'd seen throughout the facility. "It's beautiful," Sarah breathed, her scientific mind already racing to understand what she was seeing. "I think this is some kind of water purification and distribution center. But the technology, it's like nothing we've ever seen. It's not just moving water, it's creating it somehow." Tar moved toward the central column, their crystalline form beginning to glow in resonance with the energy field. The legends speak of the Shapers, beings who could draw water from light itself. We thought they were myths, stories to tell children. They turned to Sarah, their outer layers rippling with emotion. "We are their children. All this time, we've been living above the legacy they left for us, never knowing, never understanding." Sarah's tablet erupted in urgent beeping. "Council vehicles are directly overhead. They'll find the entrance any minute now." She moved to one of the pools, taking rapid readings. "Qatar, this water, it's perfect. Completely pure, and the facility is actively producing more. If we can reactivate the distribution system." She was cut off by the sound of voices echoing down the passage behind them. Qatar's form dimmed in what Sarah recognized as fear. "The council will shut this place down. They'll seal it away rather than admit our entire historical understanding is wrong." Sarah looked at her companion, then at the magnificent chamber around them. In the few months they'd worked together, she'd come to respect Qatar's intelligence and integrity. Now she had to trust them completely. "Then we don't let them shut it down," she said firmly. "Qatar, your ancestors built this place for you, for your people. They left all this knowledge, this technology, waiting for the right time. Maybe this is that time. Maybe that's why Earth sent water specialists here, Why you and I found this place together. She gestured to the central column. Human understanding of water management combined with your people's forgotten technology. We can save your world, but I need you to make a choice right now. The voices were getting closer. Qatar stood motionless for a moment, their crystalline form reflecting the swirling lights above. Then, decisively, they moved to one of the control interfaces. Tell me what you need me to do. Sarah smiled, already pulling up the scanned data on her tablet. First, we need to understand how this system works. Then we're going to give the Council something they can't ignore. Proof that the future of your world depends on embracing its past. As the voices grew louder, Sarah and Qatar worked frantically to unlock the secrets of the ancient facility, two beings from different worlds united in their determination to save this one. The chamber's lights pulsed around them, as if the very heart of the facility was beating in anticipation of what was to come. The council members filed into the ancient chamber, their crystalline forms casting prismatic reflections across the pools of water. Sarah stood her ground beside Qatar, her tablet displaying the data they'd managed to extract from the facility systems. The lead council member, Elder Barren, stepped forward, their massive form towering over both of them. Researcher Qatar, Barren's translated voice filled the chamber. You have violated numerous protocols. Unauthorized exploration, collaborating with an outsider in restricted activities, accessing potentially dangerous ancient technology. Technology that belongs to your people, Sarah interrupted, earning sharp looks from the council members. Technology that could save your world. Barren's outer layers shifted in what Sarah recognized as barely contained anger. Dr. Chen, your presence here is no longer required. The council will handle this matter internally. Qatar moved forward, their crystalline structure glowing more brightly than Sarah had ever seen. Respectfully, Elder, you cannot dismiss Dr. Chen. What we've discovered here requires both our species' knowledge to understand and implement. Sarah activated a holographic display from her tablet, showing the complex network of water creation and distribution systems that spread out from the facility. This isn't just a water management system. Your ancestors, the Shapers, created a planet-wide network of these facilities. They didn't just move water. They generated it using technology that combines principles of quantum mechanics with molecular manipulation on a scale we've barely theorized about on Earth. And how convenient, another council member spoke up, that a human scientist should be the one to make this discovery, perhaps to claim the technology for Earth. Sarah felt her patience wearing thin. If Earth wanted your technology, we wouldn't have sent scientists to help save your people. We faced our own water crisis. We learned the hard way that survival depends on cooperation, not competition. The chamber's lights pulsed more intensely, and the central energy column began to hum at a higher frequency. Qatar moved to one of the control interfaces, their crystalline appendages interfacing naturally with the ancient technology. Watch, Qatar commanded, their voice carrying an authority that seemed to surprise even the council members. The patterns on the walls began to shift, forming images that told a story. The story of the Shapers, of how they had created the Varthine, of why they had left this legacy buried beneath the surface. They were dying. Qatar explained, interpreting the images. The Shapers knew they couldn't survive on this world indefinitely. So they created us, adapted to survive here, and left us their knowledge and technology. But something went wrong. The Great Awakening wasn't our beginning. It was when we lost our way, forgot our purpose. Sarah stepped forward, adding to the explanation. The system was designed to reactivate when both our species worked together. Human understanding of water management combined with Varthine biological compatibility with the technology. Your ancestors knew that isolation would lead to stagnation. They wanted you to reach out, to connect with other species. Barren moved closer to one of the pools, studying their reflection in the perfect water. If what you say is true, the implications for our society, our beliefs, are less important than survival, Qatar finished firmly. Elder, the outer settlements are already suffering. Within months, even the central cities will be affected. We can debate philosophy after we save our people. Sarah pulled up another display, this one showing the projected effects of reactivating the entire network. The facility's systems are intact. With Qatar's ability to interface with the technology and my knowledge of modern water management, we can optimize the network for current conditions. But we need to act quickly, and we need to work together. The council members conferred among themselves, their crystalline forms creating a chorus of light as they debated. Finally, Barren turned back to Sarah and Qatar. The council requires proof that this system can be safely reactivated without causing further damage to our world, they announced. You have 1 day to demonstrate its capabilities on a small scale. If successful, we will consider implementing your proposals. Sarah exchanged glances with Qatar. It wasn't full approval, but it was a start. We'll need to begin with this facility's local distribution network, she said, already pulling up technical specifications on her tablet. Qatar, if you can interface with the main control system, I can help calibrate the output levels. As they began working, Sarah noticed something remarkable. The council members, instead of leaving, began to spread out through the chamber, studying the ancient technology with growing interest. Some even approached to ask questions about the system's functions. They're curious, Qatar observed quietly as they worked. Beneath their resistance, they want to understand. Sarah smiled, remembering humanity's own journey from fear of the unknown to embracing new possibilities. Understanding is the first step to acceptance. Now, let's show them something really impressive. Together, they began the delicate process of reawakening the ancient systems, human and Varthine working in harmony, just as the Shapers had intended. Above them, the lights pulsed with increasing intensity, as if the facility itself was coming alive with new purpose. The real test was still to come, but for the first time since arriving on this dying world, Sarah felt certain they would succeed. Not because of human ingenuity alone, or even because of the amazing technology they'd discovered, but because they'd found something even more powerful: the ability to bridge the gap between two vastly different species and work together toward a common goal. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of activity. Sarah's muscles ached from standing at the control interfaces, and even Qatar's crystalline form had dulled from exhaustion. But as they made the final adjustments to the facility's distribution system, both knew their fatigue was worth it. Power levels are holding steady, Sarah announced, checking the readings on her tablet. Water production is at 15% capacity and rising. She looked up at the central energy column, which now pulsed with a deep, steady blue light. Tar, how's the interface responding? Tar's appendages were merged with the ancient control panel, their crystalline structure resonating with the facility's energy. The systems are accepting the calibrations. The Shapers' protocols are elegant. They anticipated the need for adaptation over time. The council members had remained through the night, watching their every move. Elder Varren approached the nearest pool, where fresh water was now flowing in a constant stream. The water quality. Perfect, Sarah replied, running another scan. The facility isn't just purifying existing water. It's generating new water molecules through a process we barely understand. But look at this. She projected a hologram showing the surrounding area. The moisture is already beginning to spread through the ground layer. The soil composition is changing, becoming more fertile. The outer sensors are detecting increased atmospheric moisture as well, Carr added. Just as the ancient records suggested, the facility doesn't simply provide water, it helps restore the entire ecosystem. Varren's crystalline form shifted in what Sarah had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. And you believe all the facilities can be reactivated. We've already located 12 more within 500 kilometers, Sarah said, pulling up a map dotted with pulsing blue points. Each one was designed to maintain a specific region. Together, they form a network that could restore the entire planet's hydrology. But, Tar interjected, their tone serious. We will need help. The reactivation process requires both human and Varthine cooperation. Dr. Chen's understanding of water management systems combined with our natural ability to interface with the technology. Another council member moved forward. You propose a long-term collaboration with Earth. I propose survival. Qatar replied firmly. The Shapers left us this legacy for a reason. They knew isolation leads to stagnation. They wanted us to reach out, to grow, to learn from others. Suddenly, the facility's lights pulsed dramatically, and new patterns appeared on the walls. Sarah gasped as she recognized the images forming. They showed Varthine and humans working together, surrounded by growing plants and flowing water. It's not just a prediction, she breathed. It's a blueprint. The Shapers didn't just leave you technology. They left you a path forward. The chamber fell silent except for the gentle sound of flowing water. Sarah looked at the council members, seeing the way their crystalline forms reflected the ancient images. Even Barren seemed transfixed by the display. Elder, Sarah said softly, on Earth, we have a saying. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your ancestors left you an incredible gift, but they knew you would need help to use it. Not because you weren't capable, but because true growth comes from collaboration, from being willing to learn from others. Tar disconnected from the interface, moving to stand beside Sarah. The council must decide. Do we embrace this legacy and the changes it will bring, or do we reject it and watch our world die? Barren was quiet for a long moment, their outer layers shifting through complex patterns. Finally, they spoke. In all our records, there is no mention of the Shapers' technology requiring cooperation between species. We assumed any discoveries would be ours alone to control. They turned to face Sarah and Qatar. Perhaps that assumption was our greatest mistake. The council members gathered together, their crystalline forms creating a dazzling display of reflected light. After what seemed like an eternity, Barren stepped forward again. The council approves the full reactivation project. We will request additional human specialists through proper channels, and all Varthine scientific teams will be made available to assist. They focused on Sarah. Dr. Chen, we would be honored if you would continue to lead this effort alongside Qatar. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. Tears of relief, of joy, of triumph. The honor is mine, Elder. Together, we're going to save your world. As if in response to Barren's words, the facility's systems surged with new energy. The central column blazed brighter, and the sound of rushing water filled the chamber. Above them, through the facility sensors, they could see the first rain clouds forming in the desert sky. Qatar's outer layers rippled with emotion. The Shapers knew this day would come. They knew we would need to learn to trust, to reach beyond ourselves. Sarah smiled, watching as the council members began organizing immediate action plans. That's the thing about water, she said. It doesn't just sustain life. It connects everything it touches. Like your ancestors knew, sometimes the most powerful solutions come from bringing different elements together. Outside, the first drops of rain in centuries began to fall on the parched earth of Kepler 186f. But inside the ancient facility, an even more remarkable transformation was taking place. Two different species, learning to work together, proving that the greatest discoveries come not from technology alone, but from the willingness to reach across the void between worlds and connect. The Shapers' legacy was finally fulfilled, not in the way anyone had expected, but in the way they had always intended, through the power of cooperation, trust, and the understanding that sometimes the most precious resource isn't water, but the connections we forge in trying to preserve it.